Hello and welcome to this edition of Arlington Public News. I'm Michelle Marino.
And I'm Paul Werlin.
In tonight's newscast, we tell you about rabies, how it's transmitted, and what you can do to protect yourself and your pets. We also bring you highlights from a Narcan training, including how the drug can save lives. And we celebrate the life and contributions of a longtime Arlington resident.
Those stories and more, plus our community calendar, coming up next.
Rabies. What is it and what can you do about it? Recently, a raccoon that bit 2 children and an adult tested positive for rabies. For answers and advice, we spoke with Animal Control Officer Amanda Kennedy.
Hello, I'm joined in the studio today by Arlington's Animal Control Officer Amanda Kennedy. Amanda, thanks for coming in to talk to us this morning.
Absolutely, happy to be here.
Given the recent small spate of rabid raccoon incidents, we wanted to ask you to give us a little bit more background about rabies. So let's start with, what is rabies?
Sure. Rabies is actually a virus, and it impacts the central nervous system in the brain. It's a really interesting disease. I know that might sound odd, but it's a smart disease and it's interesting. And one of the things that I find most interesting is how quickly an animal becomes infectious is based on where they're bit. So it's really, if you think about if they're bit on their foot, on their rear foot, it's going to take longer to move up the spinal cord and into the brain. During that time, the animal is in fact not infectious. It's the incubation period. They cannot give anybody rabies. Once it does become present in the brain, they then start to shed the virus in saliva. And at that point is when they're actually considered rabid. And if they were to bite somebody or another animal, they would be transmitting rabies. At the point that it comes into the brain, and this is pretty well documented, it's 1 to 10 days until that animal will die. That's pretty much 100%. There are no known cases of animals clearing the rabies disease once they're infected.
And are we able to, can you tell if you're looking at an animal, a rabid animal, for instance, does it look or behave in a certain way that would indicate that it is indeed rabid?
So some animals that are rabid will act in a way that we can ascertain as potentially being rabid. Some won't at all, and so that's something that's really important for people to understand. Recently I've had a lot of phone calls of people very concerned because they've seen raccoons or skunks out during the day, and there's a myth around that's abnormal and not okay, but these are not animals that are exclusively nocturnal. And they will, in fact, come out during the day, especially around this time of year. But what we're looking for when we see an animal that we would suspect it to be rabid is what I would describe as drunken behavior. So again, it's affecting the central nervous system, it's affecting the brain. It's going to affect the way the animal moves, and it's going to affect the way the animal behaves. So severe aggression is obviously one that we're all pretty familiar with. Walking and falling over repeatedly, or walking in circles, are all things that would be of high level of concern. And we would want you to call the police station for sure if you saw something like that. Interestingly enough, rabies and distemper present almost exactly the same. So when you see an animal that's doing that, we know that they're sick, we know that we need to do something about it. But unless we test that animal, we're not going to know if it was rabid or if it had distemper. Either way, that animal's suffering, and we want to euthanize it so that we can keep the public safe and also do what's best for that animal.
If they happen to, what should we do if a loved one, a human or a pet, is bitten by a rabid or potentially rabid animal?
So I'll break it down. If it's a human, you want to immediately wash that area really well with soap and water for 10 minutes. So that's something that the Department of Public Health will reinforce, and that's really, really important. That you do that. You want to report it immediately if you can, so to the police. If the animal that bit is present, then you don't want to put yourself at further risk, but you want to make sure, if you're able to keep your eyes on it so that when myself or an officer arrives, we can do something with that animal. Once we've lost sight of it, it's not, we can still do something to help the person, but it changes whether we're able to get that diagnostic information.
Right. And is it the same with if it's a pet that is bitten?
So if it's a pet, I wouldn't recommend that you do the washing yourself. I would recommend that you then again call me, seek veterinary care. Either case, myself and the Department of Public Health needs to be notified. And in the case of an animal, that animal may go on a quarantine, and that quarantine can vary depending on whether they were up to date on their rabies vaccine or not.
Well, Amanda, I really want to thank you for coming in and talking with us today. It's been chock-a-block full of useful information to talk with you, so appreciate your coming by, and we'll talk to you again at another time.
Yeah, absolutely, anytime.
Thanks. For Arlington Public News, this is James Milan. Thanks for joining us.
Well, Paul, I think Officer Kennedy gave us some great tips about staying vigilant and keeping an eye out for stray animals.
And it's important to call your local police if you notice anything suspicious. Narcan is a drug that counters the effects of an opiate overdose. APN attended a recent Narcan training and brings you this report.
Arlington has a personal stake in the use and overuse of drugs. Narcan is an opioid antagonist that can protect individuals from overdoses and save lives.
Well, we saw an increase in overdoses from heroin, and we felt that there was just more that we could do as a community. So we partnered with the police department, working with the fire, police, and other partners in the community. We came together to offer this event.
Well, obviously we've been wrestling with some overdoses in Arlington, and our Director of Health and Human Services, Christine Bongiorno now, and I work very closely together. And some of our police staff members had seen this presentation as part of their police training. And they came back and enlightened me on the topic. And we began to work with Christine Bongiorno and her staff, and collectively we put it together. There's been a number of incidents where folks have dialed 911 and first responders have responded and administered Narcan. As you know, since last October, there have been 4 fatalities, unfortunately. But there also have been many saves, many Narcan saves. And so we hope to be able to increase that and decrease the fatalities.
Mary Wheeler brought street sense practical advice on how to administer Narcan.
The Narcan literally goes into my brain, right, through my bloodstream, whether it's injected into fatty tissue, injected into a vein or a nasal spray. You never inject Narcan in someone's chest, despite movies. Nasal spray hits my bloodstream, goes into my brain, kicks the opiate off my receptors and covers them. So all that drug is still in there, right? But it can't get back onto the opiate receptors.
For Arlington resident Mike Duggan, this is a personal battle.
Part of the process that I had the biggest trouble with was getting help and asking for help. Most of the time I would try to just push everybody who cared about me away and surround myself with people who were getting high like me, because that's who I felt most comfortable with. And if I was trying to get help, I try to do it on my own, and it's not an easy process. A lot of times people say, well, they have to do it on their own, and I get that. As far as getting out of a program, there's work they have to do every day to take care of themselves. It's a lifelong process, but getting into a program is not easy. It's a tough process to navigate through. The resources are there, but sometimes it's not easy knowing what resources are there. And having gone through it myself, you know, you're a little bit more comfortable talking to somebody who's gone through it. You don't feel judged. You don't feel like they're harassing you or looking down on you as much. So,
well, I think success would be measured by, as a result of the partnerships that we're seeing here tonight, that moving forward, that we could decrease the incidence of overdose deaths in Arlington to 0. And I don't think that that's an unrealistic goal.
Anyone that missed the presentation tonight and missed actually receiving Narcan can contact our office, the Department of Health and Human Services, and we'll connect them with the appropriate resources.
As of May 9th, local Walgreens pharmacies do not carry Narcan, but we will update you with any news. More information on Narcan can be found at learntocope.org. I'm Hannah Perlmutter with Arlington Public News.
You know, it's an unfortunate statistic that we have seen 4 fatalities from overdoses in Arlington since October of last year, so this is a really important program.
It's very positive that the town is offering this training and so many organizations were able to take part. 2014 marks the 30-year anniversary of the sister-city relationship between Arlington and Nagayo-Kakio, Japan. The town held an event to celebrate this special cultural exchange program.
2014 marks the 30th anniversary of the Arlington Nagayo-Kakio Sister City program. To celebrate, Nagayo-Kakio students and city officials visited Arlington on April 26th.
How long have you been involved in this organization?
Well, really, for the 26 years that I've been on the Board of Selectmen, I've been involved because it's a 30-year relationship. And every 5 years, the mayor's group comes over and visits us, and then we send a group over to visit them. For the last 10 years, we've exchanged about 25 students a year between Arlington and Nagao-Kikyo.
The Arlington Nagao-Kikyo Sister City program was founded by the late Dick Smith, who began bringing Arlingtonians to Japan in 1973.
The Japanese people are just such wonderful people. They are friendly, they are loving. It's just, the people are just so wonderful.
It's been a great experience to meet people in Arlington that are outside of our regular circle, have met fabulous people through host families. Wonderful, can't say enough about them. They have opened their hearts and homes to these students, and it's a great opportunity to let an international student see and experience Arlington through your eyes.
For Arlingtonians, this program is an opportunity to build international relationships and better understand a different country.
Well, I just think we're so lucky that students get to learn about another culture and another country, especially one that's just so different from ours. And having this exchange, these students go over, visit, and then remain in touch with these people, and often go back and visit many, many times, and it's often a life-changing experience for some of them.
Arlington students visit Nagao-Kikyo in July, and adult community members will visit in November to continue the exchange. From Arlington Public News, this is Aaron Walk.
Dick Smith was an Arlington resident for over 50 years. Throughout his life, he was active in politics and various causes, both locally and more broadly. In our next story, we bring you a closer look at the man and his notable contributions to our community.
The Sister City program celebrated its 30-year anniversary this year. Dick Smith, the program's founder, was also celebrated. In addition to being a world traveler, a husband, and an admired friend, Smith was an incredible Arlington resident, responsible for creating the special relationship between Arlington and Nagao-Kikyo, Japan.
I've heard his name many, many times because in Nagao-Kikyo he's really remembered. They take their sister city relationship very seriously, and he's a name that they know and they really respect and love.
So I just think he was so warm and friendly that you truly could say he was a citizen of both Arlington and Nagao-Kikyo.
Locals from both Arlington and Nagao-Kikyo gathered to pay respect to Dick Smith with a special bench dedication ceremony.
The organization, being with my husband for 62 years, when the Nagao-Kikyo started back in 1983, I believe it was, we were very involved with the Japanese program then and have been ever since.
And what sort of improvements and changes has it gone through in the years?
It's gotten better and better. It's getting more involved. Back then we were sister city, relationship. Now we have students coming here every year. It's grown to a wonderful organization.
The event was a beautiful representation of the inspiring relationship Dick Smith created out of his love for different culture and people. Because of his dedication and incredible spirit, the Sister City program will continue his legacy for years to come. I'm Hannah Perlmutter with Arlington Public News. Thank you for watching.
Marriage is a social and cultural union practiced through the ages and across the world. APN recently attended a very special 10th anniversary celebration.
On May 17, 2004, Massachusetts became the first state to legalize same-sex marriage. The Arlington Human Rights Commission celebrated the 10-year anniversary of marriage equality.
Margaret Mead said, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has."
David, what brings you here today?
Well, it's the 10th anniversary, and I think it's important that we continue to talk sort of one conversation at a time about marriage equality. My husband and I were part of the original lawsuit, but since then we've just been really educating, advocating, and in some cases being an activist to make sure that people understand why we wanted to get married and what the benefits are for us today.
According to the United States General Accounting Office, there are over 1,000 benefits, rights, and protections provided to married couples under federal law, including tax exemptions, Social Security and health care benefits, and legal recognition as next of kin. These legal rights can make all the difference to same-sex couples, especially during an emergency.
And when we arrived at the hospital emergency room, I was told, "You are not next of kin. We are not going to give you any information about this man." I was finally told that my partner was dead on arrival and had expired about 3 p.m. that afternoon. From that day forward, I fully understood the absolute need for legal protections for same-sex couples.
May 17th, 2004 was like the beginning of a new chapter in our lives. We both took the day off from work so we could go with so many others to town hall to apply for a marriage license. People took their children out of school so they could witness their parents applying for a marriage license. Now their families could be just like all the other families.
Since 2004, 16 states and the District of Columbia have legalized same-sex marriage, according to USA.gov. Advocates for marriage equality say that the remaining 33 states must do the same.
Well, I think for all the states that do not have marriage equality, that's the next step, and it's wonderful to think that the federal government has made it much more possible for all these other states to be equal with Massachusetts in marriage equality.
Young and old, black and white, Dems and Republicans, I think there's just more of a coalition that's been built over the last 10 years.
From Arlington Public News, this is Aaron Walk.
I think most of us know that Massachusetts was the first state to legalize same-sex marriage.
And next month, Illinois will become the 18th state in the country to legalize same-sex marriage. When we last spoke to Sarah Morissette, she had just returned from a service trip to Mozambique. She will soon be off to Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, in pursuit of a theater venture. We caught up with Sarah to find out what she is up to now.
Hi, I'm Hannah Perlmutter with Arlington Public News. Today we're with Sarah Morissette, who's about to embark on a new adventure in Rio, Brazil. Hi Sarah, thanks for joining me.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
So last time we spoke, you had just come back from Mozambique, and now I understand you're about to go to Brazil. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're going to do
Totally.
there?
Well, while I was in Mozambique, I was volunteering for an organization called Local Development Catalyst Network. And what I was doing is I was assisting and observing a local artist named Marcos Antonio. And he brings theater and dance to a lot of schools in Beira, Mozambique. A lot of schools in a lot of poor areas. And he also uses theater to help people look at issues and kind of solve issues. So while I was there with Marcos, we made this great connection and now really want to work together and become this business partnership. So we have this dream of creating a theater company together called Casa dos Sonhos, or the Dreaming House. And this company would be an international company, so there'll be half in Mozambique with him and half in the US with me. And this theater company will create and perform pieces about relevant social issues in their communities, and they'll also act as a network of teachers that will go out and use applied theater techniques to help people. I really want to use this developmental work that's done right from the roots up, starting with these ideas coming from the people, to create change. You know, change comes from the people, from the their ideas and them brainstorming and creating discussions. And so yeah, so Theater of the Oppressed, like I was saying, is it's a series of exercises and techniques and games, and the aim is to understand social reality and then to be able to change it. So Theater of the Oppressed creates a safe space for people to observe their habits and to brainstorm ideas for change, and then to be able to gain this confidence to then go out in the world and act on that change. I'm doing this fundraiser event, which is very exciting. It's on May 15th. It's from 6 to 8:30. It's at First Church in Cambridge, which is on 11 Garden Street. It's right outside Harvard Square. And so that's one part of my fundraising efforts, is this event. And the other is I am doing an online Indiegogo campaign right now. So that's exciting. We have about 15 days left to the campaign. One big lesson I learned is that developmental work is a process. And it takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of patience. And I learned that from Zach and also just, the people that he works with. And I think that that's a big thing that I had to learn. So kind of this slowing down was a big part of it. And just the importance of relationships and importance of, you know, making new friends and making new connections and networking with people is extremely important.
It's been so great talking to you. I'm so excited to see how things go.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh,
This
thank
has
you
been
for
so
coming
great.
in.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
I'm Hannah Perlmutter with Arlington Public News. Thank you for watching.
The Arlington Cultural Council held a reception for its 2014 grant recipients for public programs promoting education, diversity, and cultural excellence in our community.
On April 7th, the Arlington Cultural Council held a reception for its 2014 grant recipients.
This year, the Arlington Cultural Council was able to grant $12,000 to 17 grant recipients.
The Arlington Cultural Council is actually one of several local cultural councils that work under the auspices of the Mass Cultural Council. We get an appropriation from the state of funds to put towards arts and culture programming every year, and it's the Cultural Council's job to vet all of the grant applications that we receive and make decisions on who gets funding based on some criteria that we've established, including accessibility to the widest possible audience in the town of Arlington.
This is a really special year for Arlington because not only do we have this rich array of grant recipients, but we are also very, very pleased to announce that the Arlington International Film Festival, AIFF, was awarded a Gold Star Award from the Massachusetts Cultural Council this year for its 2013 high school poster contest.
We look for programs that enrich the cultural life in Arlington, so we're looking for things that aren't already here and accessible. So for instance, this year we funded Opera on Tap.
Opera on Tap is a national organization that performs opera in various locations where you would least expect it.
We usually helped with some program for the seniors.
Our theater group does improvisational work where people tell moments from their lives, and in the moment we play them back.
Things that a wide audience range, like of age and interests and kind of where people are in life.
Intergenerational program to invite every resident of Arlington to submit a page about something in their life that's important to them.
Well, so we really try to diversify the portfolio in terms of the medium, the art medium, and then also the audience and the range that's served.
What does this grant mean?
Normally we just pass the hat for the singers. So we were able to get some money to keep them coming back to the gallery to perform.
That it allows me to open some doors that if I didn't have the grant, people would say, but we can't afford to have you come and do that. Nice idea.
We're going to get a chance to bring together seniors in Arlington to tell their stories and also to learn this method of deep listening. So we're really glad that the grant will help us do that.
So congratulations to all of this year's grant recipients.
Next up is our arts and entertainment calendar.
Take a look into the lives of the First Ladies when 2014 Arlington Cultural Council grant recipient Delvina Theater Company performs All the President's Women on May 15th. Arlington Children's Theater performs the fast-paced parody The Complete Works of Shakespeare Abridged May 16th through 18th. Enjoy spring with a walking tour. Admire the architecture and history of the Kensington Park area on May 17th. And on the 18th, learn about the Dallins and their neighbors' contributions to art, literature, and music on a walking tour of Arlington's cultural heights. Or if you prefer, a bike tour of town, including the Alewife Greenway, Spy Pond, and new Belmont bike paths on the 18th. Be sure to wear a helmet and bring a water bottle. Max Tegmark talks about his new book, Our Mathematical Universe, on May 20th at Robbins Library. And at the Fox on May 21st, Mud Eye Puppet Company presents an interactive puppet show for the whole family. See the game-inspired works of 10 artists as 13 Forest Gallery opens its new exhibit, Tag You're It, on May 23rd. And if you missed last year's Town Hall Centennial Gala, the Historical Society is hosting a reprise on May 27th.
And last but not least, we bring you a new series by news producer Chris DeBenedictis, in which he will present regular reviews of some of the latest movies playing in the Boston area. For extended versions of the reviews, please go to our website at news.acmi.tv. We also want to say a special thank you to the Capitol Theater for granting Chris access to screenings.
Hi, I'm Chris DeBenedictis, and this is my review for Captain America: The Winter Soldier. The Cap is back. Marvel's latest brings Captain America back to the silver screen, and he is in top form. And while the movie is suitably action-packed, it also benefits from a grounding in the present-day fears and anxieties of the American people.
I joined S.H.I.E.L.D. to protect people. Captain, to build a better world sometimes means tearing the old one down. And that makes enemies.
This is my review for Transcendence. The movie does nothing to add to the sci-fi genre. It tries to encapsulate too many grand ideas and ended up not really having any. A movie about an AI where the AI tries to take over the world? It's an overly predictable plot, and even with the cast trying their hardest to get me to take them seriously, I just couldn't. I think if they just aimed a little lower and tried to tell a simpler story, they might have actually entertained me. I do not recommend this movie.
If we don't stop him, it will be the end of mankind as we know it.
What an exciting opportunity for Chris, and we hope you'll all continue to tune in for our new series.
Yeah, you know, I've always thought that'd be a great job, you know, watching movies and writing about it and sitting there and eating popcorn and getting paid to do that. I always thought that'd be a great job.
Yes.
Be sure to like us on Facebook at facebook.com/Arlington Public News and follow us on Twitter at Arlington Public News. Both links can be found on our website at news.acmi.tv.
Please join us next time for another edition of Arlington Public News. I'm Michelle Marino.
And I'm Paul Werlin. See you next time.